let's get started with how to study Daniel with Logos Bible software. Now here's the personal book. Let me go ahead and show you the table of contents. This personal book is included with the purchase of the webinar. As you can see right now, we're in the introduction. Then we're going to do the recommended but not required books, why this matters, getting the big picture, the background supplemental resources, moving from exegesis to exposition, how to handle prophecy, how to handle difficult passages, recommended PowerPoint strategies, examples, and then I'm going to just kind of show you what I've done for handouts. I've taught through the book of Daniel, and so we'll look at both those PowerPoints and handouts. And then I've included some notes from my seminary days that I think you'll find quite helpful. We'll be taking a look at those, and you can see that we'll talk about the introduction, major themes, the purpose of the book, the literary development, selective interpretive problems. We'll actually tell you ahead of time, these are the issues you're going to face in the book of Daniel, how to preach through it, and then a little kind of paragraph that summarizes the book of Daniel. This is all included in the personal book. All right, so let's jump right into recommended but not required resources. In fact, I really have tried to do my best to pare down the books to the absolute essentials. There's a lot of books that you can purchase from Logos on the book of Daniel, but these are the ones that I have found to be extremely valuable. Number one, top of the list, absolute must-have is the Exegetical Commentary, also known as the EEC Daniel. This is a fairly new book. In fact, I'll click on the three dots here and take you to the information page. You can see it came out in 2020, so it's just 4 years old. And it is up-to-date scholarly research. It's conservative. It takes a historical, grammatical, literary view of the Bible, and it's phenomenal. It is dispensational, so it does take the view of a literal 1,000-year reign of Christ. But you will not find a more scholarly, accessible, biblical commentary than this one. So I can't stress this enough. And let me go ahead and give you that link. And I'm going to try something different tonight. So tell me if this link works. All right, so go ahead and click on that link, and it should take you right to the resource. The next one is Daniel, and this one is another kind of exegetical, not as conservative, but very, very good on a lot of information, and I would definitely recommend this one. Let me go ahead and give you the buy link for that. And then the third resource that we're looking at is Daniel Akin, Exalting Jesus. The reason I like this particular series is it's very practical and it's very focused on Christ. So you're going to find a lot of good examples and just good things that can help explain the text practically. And that's what makes this resource really useful. So let me go ahead and give you that link as well. And it looks like the links are not working. Looks like some are working and some are not. Oh, hang on here. I got, let's try another one here. And let me get that previous one. That didn't work. All right. Now, in theory, you should be able to, okay, so they are seen to be working. So if they're not working, make sure when you left click on it, that a browser window may be opening behind the scenes, so look at that. And also, you can right click on it and choose open link or even copy link, which then you can copy and paste into your browser. So if you're on a phone, it might be a little bit different, but this is through the desktop app. And then another excellent resource is the John Walvoord Prophecy Commentaries. Again, conservative, dispensational, put up by Moody. Another excellent resource. Let me give you the buy link for that. And then the last one, but not least, is the Wendy Witter. And this one is, there we go, God's Kingdom Will Endure. This is put out by Zondervan. And as you can see here, it's another exegetical, fairly recent resource. In fact, let me check the date on this one. It might be a little bit older. I know there's some, they've been releasing these quite a bit. Yeah, this was 2023, so even newer than the previous one. And just another good overview, detailed exegetical commentary in the book of Daniel. So if you have these resources, you're going to be amply supplied to handle any issue in the book of Daniel. And since you already have other commentaries, probably on the book of Daniel, this will serve as a wonderful complement. And let me get that last one. Let me do this again. There's the last link. And then I'll resend out the first one more time just to make sure. And I'll give the full link on this one. For some reason it didn't work. But here we go. And there's the full link for the first one. Okay, thanks for the feedback, Tom. I really appreciate that. All right, so why does this matter? The book of Daniel is a key prophetic book, bridging the Old Testament and New Testament, as well as the first and second comings of Christ and the tribulation. The sheer magnitude of time that Daniel covers is stunning for a 12-chapter book. So this book itself spans the 70-year Babylonian captivity, and Jesus also references the book of Daniel as well. So for a small book of 12 chapters, this thing is packed. All right, so how do we study such an amazing book like this? All right, so what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through. Again, I'll be sharing some more resources, but I won't be pasting the links anymore. I just wanted to make those first ones most important. All right, so this first one, the first thing I do whenever I study a book is I do the big picture overview. Now, of course, I would recommend reading the book first. That's always good. But when you have a big book, let's say like Ezekiel or Genesis, 50 chapters, that can be very time consuming. So in either case, definitely read the book, but then you need to get an overview as you're reading the book. And this book, Talk Through the Bible, in fact, I'll go ahead and give the link on this one, because this is most of you probably have this particular resource, and it's really great. So notice that the first thing it gives you, besides just kind of an introduction, is this chart. And what's nice about the chart is you can see at the top, it gives you kind of the big picture. Chapter 1, verse 1 through 121, history of Daniel. Then the prophetic plan for the Gentiles, prophetic plan of Israel. Real easy, memorable, helps you grab the big picture. Then it gets into the smaller divisions, those chapters within the chapters, right? And then you can see those right there with the verse ranges. Then it deals with the topic. So Daniel's background, Daniel interprets others' dreams, angel interprets Daniel's dreams. And then notice, and we'll talk about this, there's a language change in the book of Daniel. And this is significant. Notice where the change happens. It's happening during the prophetic plan for the Gentiles. So as God is speaking through Daniel to King Nebuchadnezzar and to the Gentiles, he's speaking in the language of the Gentiles. But when he's dealing with the Jews, he's speaking in the language of the Jews, and that is Hebrew. Very significant feature in the book of Daniel. Notice it tells us where it's taking place and when it's taking place, and this is considered a conservative date. All right, when you get into some of the issues, one of them is going to be the dating of Daniel. And many liberals will post this book much later because they reject prophecy. They reject the future telling of scriptures. So since they reject that, they say there's no way Daniel could have known the future. Therefore, he wrote the book. He didn't actually write the book. Someone else edited it and updated it. I can tell you that that is definitely rejected. That is not a biblical view. All right, so you get a quick overview. And notice in this book, you also have the introduction, the title, some background, the author, date and setting. Again, very short, concise information, theme and purpose. And then I like this little section, Keys to Daniel, with some key verses, a key chapter, and even a reference to Christ in Daniel. How is Christ portrayed or referenced in here? And then how it contributes to the rest of the Bible. What role does Daniel play in reference to the rest of the books? Now, one thing that's really cool about Daniel is that he's part of these prophets that were around during Babylon's conquering of Judah. And this is very significant. And so as we get into some of these charts, we're going to see that Daniel was a contemporary to, for example, Jeremiah. Pretty neat stuff. And then we get into the survey, which again does a quick overview of the chapters. As you can see, it covered the whole book of Daniel in about 5 or 6 paragraphs. That's fast. And then there's an outline. And then once you're done with the outline, you can look at the prophets. Yeah, here's a good example of why a book like this is so great. So here we have Jeremiah 627 to 580, and we have Daniel 605 to 535. And so there is a little bit of overlap there. There's also some overlap. It's always tricky to do these BC dates in my head. Don't think, yeah, so Isaiah wasn't there. but Daniel, Ezekiel, a little bit of overlap. Oh, no, no overlap on Ezekiel. He came afterwards. And yeah, so yeah, definitely Jeremiah. So pretty cool. And if we scroll down, we can see some other ones as well. So this can make it really fun because now you can say, hey, who was around the time of Daniel? And you can see from 605 to 535, I think there was one other one. Yeah, Habakkuk was available. And let's see, 632 to 628, I think that one included. Nope, he's just out of range. And let's see, Haggai. Yeah, so Haggai, Habakkuk, and Jeremiah were all around the same time of Daniel. Now that's pretty cool when you think about four godly men. And they seem to be somewhat in communication with one another, at least in sending the writings, because we'll see that Daniel will actually be reading the prophet of Jeremiah, discovering that the 70 years is now complete. Pretty cool. All right, so a book like that is going to be absolutely essential for you when you're studying the book of Daniel. You need to get that big overview. Now, once you've done the overview, I highly recommend grabbing one of your Old Testament surveys. Now, this is just one. It's not a required one. There's many in your library that you could use. And the reason we like the survey is because of the information in there. This particular one, Daniel as apocalyptic literature, walking through the contents of book of Daniel, the theological themes. This is really key. I like this about survey books. The sovereignty of God, the pride of man, and how God ultimately is victorious. Problems of interpretation. So there's some of the issues you're going to have to deal with, like the vision of the 70 weeks. And as you can see, it's quite detailed. Plus, some of these books will include pictures, which I love to see, archaeology, which all you got to do in Logos is right-click that image, click on image, and then you can send a Proclaim or send a PowerPoint, or if you're on a Mac, you can send a Keynote, or even print it out, or just copy and then edit it however you want. So books like Survey will add some wonderful multimedia to the presentation. As you can see, there's also some commentary. Here we see a chiastic structure helping us see the structure of the whole book of Daniel from Daniel 2 to Daniel 7. So Daniel 2, a vision of four kingdoms and their end, is in parallel to a vision of four kingdoms and their end. And then the faithfulness and miraculous rescue in Daniel 3, his three friends, is also connected with Daniel's rescue from the lion's mouth. I believe that's the one. I can't always remember. And then 4 and 5, judgment predicted and experienced Nebuchadnezzar. And then his son, judgment predicted and experienced Belshazzar. So things like this that you would easily miss are included in books like this. And then we deal with Christian citizenship. Nice little thing there. And then we get into theological themes, etc. So once you've done the overview, definitely do the Old Testament survey. And this is all preparatory. Now, again, you're reading the book of Daniel along the way so that you have some reference to what this is all about. Now, let's talk about structure. This is a big deal. I have promoted this book many, many times. If you don't own this book, let me get you the link. You absolutely got to get this one. It's such a cool book. Unfortunately, it's only for the Old Testament, not the New Testament. And here it is. So this is the book of Daniel. It's the literary structure of the Old Testament and commentary on Genesis to Malachi. So what the author has done, besides giving you an outline, is he has identified all the structures in the text. And he gives you these wonderful outlines. Sometimes the outlines are parallel, sometimes they're chiastic structures, sometimes they're a hybrid, a combination of the two. So here's an example of the symmetry. We just saw this, but now we got more detail. So 2 through 7, there it is, right? And then here's 8 through 12. So now we got these chapters. So we get these wonderful parallels reinforced here. And then sometimes he'll actually go really deep and detailed into the text. So here's story 1, chapter 1, Daniel and his friends in Nebuchadnezzar's court. Story 2, Nebuchadnezzar's dream and Daniel's interpretation. Again, notice the chiastic structure. Now, just as a review, a chiastic structure, again, is this parallel, but the key is the middle. The middle of a chiastic structure is the point of climax, typically the point of emphasis. It's the key idea. It's what everything is leading up to. And that's why if there is a chiastic structure, you want to know that so you don't miss the main point, the main purpose. And then you have Daniel 3 with the three friends. And of course, they come out unharmed is the middle point. Then we have Nebuchadnezzar's Madness, Belshazzar's Feast, Daniel in the Lion's Den. So there you go. Pretty amazing. And that's all he unfortunately included. So he does give you the whole book, but he may or may not give you super details on every part of the book. So be aware of that. Now, another resource that I came across in my studies is this one, Sidney Greidanus. And this one, let me get you the link for this particular resource. This is another one that you're going to really love because he gives you these really cool images. Let me just go ahead and search for them. So I'm going to click on the search magnifying glass, and I'm going to do pound image. And so you can see in the book there's these maps, but the real cool part of this book are these story plots, all right? Now, he gives you kind of the general story plot here, setting, preliminary. He's kind of explained how these story plots work. And then he actually goes through the whole book of Daniel, plotting out every chapter. So you can see in chapter 1, 1 through 12, God gives Judah to Nebuchadnezzar, preliminary, Daniel and his friends to Babylon, occasioning incident, and then we're moving towards the climax. The guard agrees, the test is successful, they have their food, they're promoted to the king's court, there's the resolution, outcome, and conclusion. He's got this for every chapter. It's awesome. And so this kind of hard work that's been done is only going to make it that much easier for you to study and know what to emphasize and understand the relationship of one part of the book to the next. So I love these story plots. Plus, he's got some extra chapters. This one's really nice on Daniel 9 with some dating and the different weeks and how to understand that and so forth. So really an amazing resource. Now, I'm just showing you the images. There's a ton of commentary that comes with this. So Sidney Greidanus is an excellent resource as well. Now, if you're wondering, what do you have in your book? Let me give you a really great search I love to run, and I'll copy and paste this into the chat box. And this search is something I do all the time when I'm studying a particular passage. Now, the search, we've done this before, but here it is. So we're searching for a structure or chiastic structure, all right, or parallelism or block diagram or mechanical layout. These are the terms that most books will use when they are going to build a outline, all right? And then I put near Bible, and then the book or chapter that I'm studying. In this case, I want to look at Daniel 1. Now I'm on book view, which just gives me a list of books, but let's go to library view, and let's see what kind of results we get. So one of the things I look for is in the heading. If it says structure, that's probably a good hit, so I'm going to click on that. And here's the word biblical commentary. Notice again, walking us through the details of, in this case, it looks like Daniel chapter 1. So this commentator gave us a chiastic structure for chapter 1. And that will help you study and see relationships much more easily. So I'd love to do a quick search like this, try to find one, and then study along. Knowing what's in parallel will help in the interpretive process. Now keep in mind, when I say things are parallel, they can be parallel in the sense that they are the same, they agree, or they can be parallel and opposite. In other words, positive versus negative. That would be an example of a contrast. So be aware of those variances and nuance. So this specialized search is going to help you find in your library other structures, and that'll help you see the book more clearly. All right, so once you've identified the structure, then the next step is to establish your study sections. And there's several tools in Logos that I think you'll find very useful for this. Probably the easiest, but not always the most detailed, is the Bible Outline Browser. To get to there, we go Tools, then we just type in Outline. So we type in Outline, Tools Outline, and you'll see we have Bible Outline Browser, and here it is. The next thing you have to do is type in the book you're studying. So we do Daniel, and after you press Enter, after typing in Daniel, Logos is going to look for this resource. Now I'm going to click on this double chevron right here to expand the menu, and you can see that we have these outlines. And this can help you see the major sections. Now what's fascinating is many of these commentaries actually copy one another. So the introduction, verses 1 through 21, we've seen that. If we go to other commentaries, if they have it, this one just jumped to chapter 2. But here we go, chapter 1. Now that one didn't have as many details, but if we keep scrolling down, we can see, like, look at this outline. Now, if we click and expand it, then this one actually didn't give us much more detail. So every book is going to be a little bit different in how they organize the text. But in either case, you're getting how people have organized. Yeah, here one from Bullinger is pretty detailed. And so he's going to do A, B, D, C, D, B, C, D, B. Yeah, he's got a kind of a parallel chiastic weird structure going on there. And Bullinger is noted for that. So you can see what's going on here. Yeah, here's another one, Daniel and his friends. There's your 1 through 21. So very useful. Be aware of that. These are placed in alphabetical order. We don't have any control to change the order of the book, so be aware of that. So by reviewing some outlines, you're going to get a good sense of where the major breaks are. So if you're planning on teaching a Bible study, preaching a sermon, and you're trying to lay out in advance, boy, what am I going to do here? Looking at how people have broken the outlines will help you keep things thematically connected. Very key. The other tool, it's a little bit buried, and that's the passage analysis. So how did I get here? Well, we go to Tools, and we type in Passage, and you'll see Passage Analysis. And then all we got to do is go down to the bottom, and we're looking for Compare Pericopes, right down there. And this is what we get. Now, you can change the Bibles by clicking here on Pericope Sets. This will allow you to pick and choose. You do not need to select every Bible, all right? Let me just warn you at a time. Unnecessary. I like to have one full screen. That's really ideal, so I don't have to scroll left and right. And I tried to pick books that were different in the way they outline. Many Bibles will use the same structure. So here we have Daniel taken to Babylon, very similar to the HCSB, but notice that the HCSB breaks a little bit here with some more detail. Here we have just one big chapter, 2 divisions, and so forth. But as we scroll down, we can start to see where each one is a little unique in how they break the divisions. And this too can help you plan out your Bible study process, where you want to include breaks. Like you can see, the NASB probably does the most detailed of any Bible, which I like a lot. And like I typically go by the NASB's breaks because they're usually pretty good and so forth. So between the outline browser and the passage analysis, you'll be in good position to structure and to outline the section breaks. All right, now don't lose sight that the Factbook is your friend as well. So let's click on the Factbook, and we're going to type in Daniel, and we'll wait for it. And notice we have this option, Book of Daniel. We're not going to click on the Prophet Daniel, but we are going to click on the Book of Daniel. And this is a wonderful addition to the Factbook, what Logos has done here. Now, as you can see, there's many sections. The key article, that's going to summarize the book. We have media, and that's definitely worth checking out if you plan to do PowerPoint or printouts. There's a lot of great pictures in there. The events, this is really handy because it'll literally walk you through all the events leading into and through and after the book of Daniel. So you can see here that Daniel 1 through 2 is mentioned, but now we got all these cross-references to more information. Now, why is this important? Because when you study a book, you tend to be so focused on that one book, you forget about, hey, is this talked about anywhere else in the Bible? And it is. And some of these details are amazing, particularly in how King Nebuchadnezzar is portrayed. He's a very violent leader and merciless, to be honest with you. And so when we see him in Daniel, we see a different side of him as well. So these events are not only useful for ordering the events chronologically, but giving you cross-references to other parts of the Bible. So definitely take advantage of that. It's not a full cross-reference, but it's still pretty good. And you can see here the rest of the book. All right, and then look at this. The temple is destroyed. People take